Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. And before we get into today's topic, I have to apologize. I have missed a few short stories that you were supposed to read way prior to the Clone Wars. A lot of these took place in the Old Republic. Let me explain. The first one is Knights of the Old Republic 0, written by John Jackson Miller. Now, this is just an introduction to the series, kind of like the prerequisite of what happens before it started. So one of the viewers called it out and said, "Hey, you didn't review issue 0." And I was like, I didn't, did I? So, yes, you can read issue 0. And you're thinking, whoa, there was an issue 0? Yeah, it was a little flip book with, I think it was Rebellion 0. And it was worth 25 cents. I picked it up a long time ago. There's really not much of a story, but I can't make fun of it because it only costs 25 cents. So not much happens in it. You don't have to read this before you get to Knights of the Old Republic, but there is an issue 0. Now, it costs maybe like $3 online to get, and that maybe even be $5 with shipping, okay? So it's still very cheap and easy to get if you want to get them all, but as being detrimental to the overall story, it is not. Fun fact though, issue 1 came out before issue 0. Usually issue 0 comes out first as a preview for the upcoming, comic book series, but they couldn't get it out in time. So it actually came out after issue number 1. But anyway, sorry that I missed that. Okay, the other ones that I missed. Oh yes, there are 3 more. They all came from Star Wars Tales. And let me explain to you something about Tales. As I told you, I had them out of order in my collection. And I found out why. I think I know, because back in the day I would pick out my favorite story and I would put that one in the timeline I wanted. I think that's the reason some of these are out of order. Now they're all collected, they're all there. And a few months ago, as I told you for Star Wars EU Day, I was actually reading through some of my tales and I missed 3 stories, which one I can't believe I missed because I definitely want to talk about it. It was in Star Wars Tales 16. It was called Heart of Darkness, written by Paul Lee. Now, in this story, there is a fight that takes place on Dagobah between a Jedi named Minch and then a Dark Jedi. And of course it takes place in the cave. Remember the cave that Luke entered into in Empire Strikes Back? The dark side was big in there. And we found out reading from the Empire Strikes Back novel that there was once a Dark Jedi that was there and died there and his essence filled the cave. Well, that story had never been told, and Star Wars Tales actually told the story. And I can't believe I forgot to mention this one a long time ago. I guess I didn't know exactly where to put it in the timeline and I skipped over it, but I liked it because it kind of told that story. It connected something from the movie that was kind of unexplained, and you're thinking, well, Matt, I never really thought about, why the cave was full of the dark side and Empire. Yeah, well, I did. And I wanted to know everything. And that was just another opportunity for the Expanded Universe to come in and tell a tale of something of the unknown, a question that a fan may have while watching the film. And of course it came way later, but it was nice to know what had gone on, even though it's not that good of a story though at the same time. Everything leading up to that, you don't even realize, that that's what it's telling about. And I probably gave you a spoiler there, but that's what the story leads up to, is how, that cave became full of Dark Jedi, essence or whatnot. And for that reason, I liked it, but I found out something about Star Wars Tales. The times I like them the best is when they connect to other stories or tie in other storylines. Because it's all about continuity for me, folks, and that's one of the things I love about the Expanded Universe. It was rife with continuity. All right, so you've gone through Star Wars 16. There are 2 more Star Wars Tales that I failed to mention back in the Old Republic days, and again, I apologize. Both of them come from Star Wars Tales 17. The first story was written by Adam Gallardo, called All For You. Now, this one takes place 1,000 years after Endor, and what had happened, there was, and they don't tell you this in the story, I mean, they do in one panel, but there was a Jedi who crash land on the planet Serenian, I think is how they pronounce it, and he gives a holocron to the people to kind of hide or whatever, and a Sith comes to start looking for it. Now that's when you come into the storyline. All the rest of it's backstory that the tribe of people on that planet do talk about. Now, this story was awful for several different reasons, but one mainly is the art. In this book, all the characters drawn with these big feet and sometimes little heads. And I thought, okay, maybe that's just a new, human-like alien race. They looked like hobbits. Their feet were just drawn huge. And then when I saw a Sith come down, he had huge feet too and a small head. And I was like, oh, this is just the way he does his art. Ugh. And the story wasn't that interesting either. In fact, I didn't care anything about the story. It seems like the guy was heavily influenced by like Limp Bizkit art. If y'all remember the cover to that album where they had the big feet and the smaller head and everything was out of proportion, all drawn wanky. It seems like that's kind of what he was inspired to be drawing like, because he thought that was really cool. And it comes across as utter garbage, as does that story. So again, Star Wars Tales strikes out. Now, what about the second one? It was called Apprentice. Written by Mike Denning, it talks about a girl wanting to join a Sith and his apprentice. She basically wants them to take her away from the planet she's on. Now, this one has a sort of twist ending at the end, and it's okay, fine. But to me, it wasn't that big of a twist. It wasn't that good of a story either. I really didn't like it. I thought it was kind of just dumb, like a lot of the Star Wars tales. So again, those were the ones I missed. You didn't miss much, right? Besides Heart of Darkness, maybe would have been interesting. And Knights of the Old Republic 0, if you like Zane, it is a little bit of a story on Zane. But those were the ones I missed. Now let's move on to the Clone Wars. And with that, we're going to talk about the Clone Wars Adventures, volumes 1 through 10. Now, these volumes took place during Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, and basically the art is very similar to the art in the cartoon show, and the adventures take place all over the Clone Wars era. In fact, if you looked at any Clone Wars timeline, you would see that they throw these books everywhere. Like 3 is here, then read 1, then go back to 5, then read 7, then go back to 5, then read 6, or whatnot. I've seen 3 or 4 different timelines where they have them all jumbled together. And folks, I'm not going to have you jump through those hoops. For me, I would say read the entire 10 volumes. It'll take you maybe 2 hours, probably an hour and a half to read through them all, because just like the TV show, Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, which I think is excellent, these comic books show a lot of adventure and they're light on the words. And usually I like my comic books I like them to be a little bit wordy. I like a good balance of words and art. I don't really like comic books that give us tons of art and then like very little dialogue, even though when is that the case these days, right? Everything has tons of dialogue in it. But it was nice to have these because I think it matched the series and the tone and the pacing, because you remember there wasn't a lot of talking going on in the Clone Wars cartoon show either. So I liked how it was fast-paced. There was low dialogue, a lot of action going on. And like I said, it featured several different characters from the Clone Wars show. If you were to ask me what would be my favorite book or volume from that or story from those series, I could not tell you. I tried to come up with some, but after I went through the first 3 books and I had like 5 that I already loved, I was thinking, okay, this is ridiculous. But that series, I really did enjoy, that comic book series. They were in these like little paperback, novels. There's a bunch of short stories. And why did it differ from Tales? Well, Clone Wars Adventures at the time was just these micro adventure stories, right? They didn't take that long. They just showed you little spots throughout the Clone Wars. And I liked that. And this one gives you the same feel. You're just going in and out of different eras of the Clone Wars. And that's why the timeline for them, everyone has their own opinion of it. But folks, read it 1 through 10. Yeah, sure, some take place way later than others. But to be honest, just read it 1 through 10 and just sit back and enjoy it. I think it goes really well with the cartoon series. I don't know if they worked with them. I don't know how closely they did. I doubt it was very close, but they did get the look and feel of Tartakovsky's Clone Wars into those 10 volumes. In fact, to be honest, I was actually sad when they stopped making them. It was always a pleasant surprise when one popped up at my comic book store. I was like, oh, Clone Wars Adventures, because they were just fun. And for someone who didn't like the Clone Wars era as much, there's other eras I like better, those books were always a joy to see. And most of the comic books in general, I could say for that. All right, folks, that's all the time I have for today. Till next time, see ya.